At least you had 2 car seats in the car, but no kids in it. You needed to be home with your wife and kids, not out drunk in the middle of an intersection on a Saturday. Back, we have a sentence, 2 cases, same defendant. I'm going to address here. Let me get set up. 2 sentences in the matter of People versus Joseph Richards, file number 25145 SD, which was a drinking driving offense from January. Oops, thanks. Drinking driving offense from January of 2025. And 25951 SD, another offense from, I believe, May. We're dealing with those 2 cases regarding Joseph Tanner Richards. Both matters are set for sentencing here today. Defendant is here with his lawyer, Mr. Timothy George. Angelique Campfield is here from the prosecuting attorney's office, and Autumn Kiefer drew this tough assignment on preparing the screening reports. Autumn and I did have a chance to discuss this, and frankly, this is a tough case. He has had a CARS assessment, but has not had his formal assessment. Mr. George worked some magic and got the prosecutor to take 2 impaired driving pleas to this. The first incident was a 219. The second incident was, I believe, 9.097. Mr. George, we'll start with you and see if we can figure out how we should proceed here.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. I think in a lot of ways, Autumn may say it a different way, but I think she gets to the point that is kind of at the core of Mr. Richards. The first time that we came on the very first case, I know he was upset, frustrated, as many clients are when they're here on their first court appearance in an OWI case. But after the second one happened, I think that he realized that there were some things that were going on that weren't healthy for him. Autumn does indicate in her report, and it's consistent with what he's told me, that the lifestyle that he was living was one of these get out of work and drink at night and drink on the weekends, and which isn't uncommon for kids his age, but it was clearly putting himself in situations where he was putting himself at risk by getting behind the wheel of a car and putting the community at risk. Now, fortunately, both of these circumstances, ended up with no injury to himself or anybody in the public. But, the first one was very scary where he was passed out behind the wheel. And then the second one was a little bit more innocuous, but he was still over the legal limit. And I think that talking to Mr. Richards, he realizes that he was running probably a lot harder than he thought he was at that time. And I think that, he has 2 young kids. He has the benefit of having the children's mother still in his life, and she's going to help to get him around if the court were to put him in a sobriety court.
Did I know that he had 2 kids?
Mm-hmm. But I think he wants the help. He's still very young, so I think he's still learning. And I think that some education, some treatment, and seeing others that are in a similar situation and maybe have had their lives go astray because they didn't have intervention at an early age would be beneficial for him. And I know it sounds coarse, but as Autumn says in her report, the worst that could happen would be a failure. But I think that in talking with Joseph and going over everything that Autumn's asking him to do, he's coming in with the right attitude. I know we need to get that assessment done. He's got that scheduled for next Monday. I think he'd be a good candidate for your program, Your Honor. And we'd ask the court to adopt the recommendation as we believe that it's appropriate. Thank you.
This is interesting plea agreement, and we can go, we have flexibility on what to do, but the question is, what do we do? Ms. Campfield, what's your thought here?
Your Honor, I know I spoke with Ms. Kiefer just prior to going on to the record, and she indicated due to not having the assessment, it may be appropriate to adjourn one or more of the sentencings today until we have that back. However, given the frequency with which these are occurring and the closeness in which they occurred, I would like him under supervision as soon as possible. So my thought process is to perhaps sentence him on 25-145 SD and perhaps postpone the 25-951 SD for that assessment to see if we can go into the sobriety court under that one pursuant to the assessment. What concerns me also is the high blood alcohol on the January offense with a 0.219. He indicated in that he had been over to his family's home to a dinner, that he had fallen asleep and got up to go to work, was trying to be responsible, and then pulled over and passed out with the vehicle running because he was feeling ill. I'm not surprised he was feeling ill at a 0.219, even after presumably having slept some of that off. I do want to note, although I have no proof of it, he had a 2019 reckless driving where he drove off the road into someone's porch. And I'm concerned that the reason he left and did not report that.
He had 2 of those.
Yes, was because he was drinking at that time as well. Again, I have no proof of it, but given the pattern of conduct here, I suspect it has been going on for a much longer time than he was willing to relay to Ms. Kiefer. So at this point, I do agree with the recommendations. I think it's appropriate for him to be in sobriety court. I'm very concerned about the path he's on. I do think there's an alcohol dependency, and it's getting worse. Having said that, the one thing I might recommend modifying, because there are 2 of these in a matter of months, would be perhaps a little bit additional upfront jail before beginning sobriety court, if that's the court's idea, to place him there as an incentive not to go back.
Mr. Richards, usually I go with Ms. Kiefer next, but I want to hear from you. What would you like me to know?
What was that?
What would you like me to know?
This past year, it's just been stressful, and I had a house out in Cass. My grandpa passed away, so I had to move back in with my brother in St. Joe County. So I was moving and trying to work and had a lot going on.
Where do your kids live?
They live with me.
Which is where now? And how old are they?
My son will be 4 on the 12th of September, and my daughter just turned 2 in June.
Tell me about your job.
So I was working at Coach or Dutchman, and then they dropped down to 3 days a week, so the money wasn't there for me. So I went back to my old job doing construction, and I found a new job in a trailer factory at Coachman, and I got orientation tomorrow for Coachman.
Well, I'm strongly considering putting you in jail right now, immediate, which might affect your orientation tomorrow. The January incident, you were very drunk, and despite what you say, you were in the middle of the intersection at 131 and Riverside Drive. which is a terrible place to be passed out. And you're apparently going to work at almost 3 times the legal limit for alcohol. You don't pay your fines and costs. You owe me hundreds of dollars in other tickets. 6. No insurance, no proof of insurance. They cut you a break and let you plead to no proof of insurance. You haven't paid the fine. Sent notice, mail undeliverable. That was in front of Judge Pattison, 22940. Operating without a valid license. Pled to allowing another to violate the motor vehicle code, $325 or 3 days jail. I don't believe you ever made a payment. No insurance under the insurance code again. Admit to no proof of insurance in 2023. You didn't pay that either. Let's keep going. Violation of seatbelt law, 2022. You didn't pay that. 8. No proof of insurance again, January of 23. So you got 3 no insurance, reduced to no proof of insurance, and you never paid any of the fines. Defective equipment, 2024. You never answered the ticket. Didn't pay that either. Then you had a couple things that were attached to this. What's this? You got a ticket for impeding traffic since this incident in May. What's that? You got a ticket for going 79 and a 55 on July 14th. And they wrote you impeding traffic, which is a huge break. $90707. I don't see it in here. Have you answered that ticket that you got in July?
No, I haven't. I haven't gotten any. I just got my address switched over and everything. Me and another car, a car passed.
Don't tell me more about it. Autumn, in light of the additional information we just discussed, he's got a new hyper speeding ticket. He's got 7 unpaid current tickets, including 3 no insurances, which he kept getting a break from no insurance to no proof of insurance. Didn't pay the ticket. Got a break from no operator's license to allowing another violate the motor vehicle code. Didn't pay the ticket. He is very immature, doesn't quite get it. And you said that when we were discussing it, but he really doesn't get it. He might get it after about 90 days in jail. I have a glimmer of insight. We've been considering sobriety court for several weeks since the second incident in May. What's your thought here?
Well, it's imperative that he gets this assessment because we all know that that is self-reported. And the fear would be is that he not fully self-report and be truthful with that assessor. And you can't not be in treatment if you are in a treatment program. I asked him flat out if he thought he had an alcohol problem, and he said no, which is concerning, but wanted to blame everything else in his life that had been happening for the reason for his drinking, and that's truly not the case. He is young. He has 2 young children. he needs to figure this out. He has an awful driving record to be so young. I'm going to leave it up to the court, but I would be fearful of the fact that if we sentence him into a sobriety court program today and we get an assessment back that states that he doesn't need treatment, then what are we going to do with him?
It's a hard thing to realize when you're 24 that you have a substance abuse problem and that you can't drink, because one thing, it's fun what everybody else is doing. I tend to agree with Ms. Camfield. I think one or more of those reckless driving incidents was alcohol related. You're only 24. You got all these other tickets which you've promptly ignored. They cut you a break 3 times. You paid them back by you and your horse. Then you get a speeding ticket going 80 miles an hour while you're on these 2 bonds, which I don't know what the status of it is. It probably said appear within 14 days to the court, and you haven't done that. In the first incident, and I often disagree with the alcohol assessors. I don't need a degree to determine that someone who's at 1217 in the middle of an intersection at 7 o'clock in the morning on, this would have been a Saturday morning, January 25th was a Saturday. So I don't think you were going to work. A citizen actually called it in. White pickup truck at the intersection appears to be passed out. They tried to honk the horn. They couldn't tell whether they're breathing or not. Police officers get there. Subject parked in the driving lane. Parked in the intersection, running with the driver sleeping, passed out behind the wheel at 6:37 in the morning. January 25th would have been a Friday into a Saturday morning, so I don't know if you're going to work. Then they had to block you off before you took off because you were so out of it. The truck was actually in drive. At least you had 2 car seats in the car, but no kids in it. You needed to be home with your wife and kids, not out drunk in the middle of an intersection on a Saturday morning. A 24-pack of Budweiser on the driver's side floorboard and an open bottle of beer leaking out the driver's side onto the roadway. This is just a sad story. And then it gets worse. But you were cooperative with the police. All right. I tend to agree with Ms. Kiefer. We need the assessment on the other case. I suppose if I put him on probation, I can make him pay all his fines and costs, or I can just give you a bunch of jail. You'll get out about Christmas time, and I can wipe out some of those fines and costs. But we're going to try this. 25145 SD. Impaired driving. Wrong judgment. At some point, there becomes a consequence. Blowing off all these tickets, not paying any fine, not answering my letters regarding payment, getting arrested for drunk driving, while on bond for drunk driving, getting arrested for another drunk driving, while on bond for 2 drunk drivings, getting a ticket for going 80 in a 55 and not responding to the ticket. At some point, if all catches up, in that case, I'm gonna order 4 days jail, credit 2, leaving 2 days to serve. You got a family. I'm just gonna give you the minimum fine in that of $125. You're gonna pay that or do it 2 additional days. When did you have your last drink of alcohol?
I think right before the last time I had court in here.
I'm gonna continue this sentence. Did you even know you had all those unpaid tickets? Yeah, they're just off your radar. You get a ticket, they give you a break, they reduce it. We send you a letter, you don't pay, they give you a break. You got 3 of those, 3 no insurance reduced to no proof of insurance. A driving suspended or no ops reduced to allowing another to violate the motor vehicle code, and you just, then you get a speeding ticket, same thing. It'll go away. Maybe it won't. Let's continue the sentence. For substance abuse assessment. In 25951 ST. That's the case if you do sobriety court that I'm gonna do the probation in. You're gonna lose your driver's license because you're gonna have 2 drunk driving convictions within a 7-year period. So if it hasn't already hit, it's about to hit. This first one will restrict your license. When the second one hits, it'll be suspended. It'll actually be revoked for 5 years. Unless you go into a sobriety court program, in which case we can get you an interlock after 45 days. I'm not sure you're ready for it. And we also have this speeding ticket out there, which could also affect your ability to get your license straightened out. Let's find a date that works for Mr. George to put that second case. Those things that I found here are just in St. Joe County. I don't know what else you got in Cass County. If you got unpaid tickets over there as well, set that for 11. I have 3 sentences at 11. All right, here's the deal. I've continued the second case, the May case, for your ability to get your assessment. You're going to have to be honest with those people. If you're going to say, I don't have a problem, they're going to say, well, he doesn't have a problem, so he's not eligible for sobriety court, which means you'll be eligible for a big bunch of jail and a revoked driver's license. We're going to figure out what the deal is with all these unpaid tickets, find out what the status of your speeding ticket from July is. But you're going to jail right now for 2 days. You're going to miss orientation tomorrow. I told you eventually it caught up with you. Well, it just did. You keep blowing stuff off and pretending like it didn't happen. Well, it just happened. So I gave you 4 days jail, credit 2, leaving 2 days to serve. I waived 0 fine, 0 screening fee, 0 attorney fee. Take it all out of the other case. This is money that your family needs. And then you got to pay me $125, which is the minimum fine, or you're going to do 2 additional days in jail. But you got 2 days to think about what you want to do. whether you want to go to jail and lose your license, or whether you want to try to successfully do a probation and start to acknowledge your responsibilities. So you go with the officer. I will see you on September 29th at 11. You're at the West 2nd Street address in Constantine. And I want you to be honest with the alcohol assessment people. You're good to go. Thank you, Mr. George. And let me know on Mr. Paway what you want me to do.